to say.
I just took a look at the 20 months or thereabouts of David Barham's time at the Essendon Football Club. August 2022, he came in, and as we know, he moved on the chair. Paul Brasher at the time, the coach was sacked, the CEO quit, and then another one lasted all of 30 hours. And we get to 20 months down the track, and in my eyes, Ed, there's no difference. It is same old Essendon. You've still got Kevin Sheedy still on the board, who publicly went with the fact he wanted James Hird and not Brad Scott. And I don't know of another board in the AFL competition that would tolerate a director having that type of behaviour to still be allowed to be on the board. Adrian Dodoro, who we were told last year by a club media statement would be out at the end of last year, is still actively involved in the contracts. And it does shed light. I mean, on 20 years, it's not all Adrian Dodoro, it's not all Kevin Sheedy. In fact, they might be the lesser of the two problems, but they're still there. And this club has had problems for the best part of 20 years.
So, Jimmy, when it comes to Essendon, we do what?
It's interesting. We've got to be careful because it's Brad Scott's second year, and I've been hard on them. And they're 2 wins and 2 losses at the moment, so it was a horror loss, and they deserve to cop what they copped on the weekend. But I look at it: Western Bulldogs Friday night, Adelaide Crows the following Friday night, then the Magpies on Anzac Day. So it's a better time, I think, to assess them. But I do look at the last 20 years, Damo, that you're talking about, and the last period where there hasn't been enough change and there hasn't been enough consistency. And I look at some of the players, and my greatest times and Jimmy's greatest times in football, and yours, Eddie, as the president, is when you get to the finals and you win big finals, aren't they? Jimmy, can see the smiles on both your faces.
Exactly right.
And I look at, like, Dyson, who's, it's in his final year, you'd think, 239 games, never having won a final. Zaharakis, Hooker, Hurley, through their eras, they never won a final. And Zach Merritt will probably win maybe as many best and fairest as anyone that's ever played at Essendon.
And he's a 3-time All-Australian.
And he's going to miss out on potentially winning a final. And it's sad for such a proud club.
The Bombers fans, though, you can't look back 20 years because,
they're not responsible
half the players were won when this happened. You've just got to look at, you've got to actually cut it up a little bit. And I think you've got to actually say that the era of Brad Scott is it's what is it, 25 games in. Just calm down.
Back on the Kevin Sheedy component, though, I can't imagine you being a chair of a club and allowing a director to go public with his personal decision on
that was a bad mistake.
And I can't imagine him being allowed to walk back into that club for one more meeting, let alone the 20 months
except
that followed.
It's Kevin Sheedy.
Well, that's the problem.
I know.
That is part of the problem. It is still the old Essendon club being driven by cult-like figures who can do and say what they want, and there's no ramifications.
I think the fix is their passion. Adrian and Kevin's passion for the club is so great. I think that's why they're so renowned and loved, I think, within the footy club, Damon. Whether you like it or not, that's the issue. And you also raised the All-Australians, or the lack of...
Well, there's 9 All-Australians since their last finals win. So from 2005 onwards, there's been 9 individuals who have been Essendon players making an All-Australian list. And there's a total of 13, Merritt 3 times and Joe Watson 12. But have a look at that number against some other clubs in that same period of time. And it's not all identification. It's not all Adrian Dodoro, don't get me wrong. There's development and there's injury. But it is a stark reading now of a club that has, right now as we speak, got more top 10 picks, first round picks, more than any other club in the competition. And some of those have been brought into the club.
I wouldn't be necessarily putting the All-Australian selections as the gold standard and where things are. There's been a few howlers along the way there.
No, but it illustrates that over 20 years, they've got 9 players who have made an All-Australian as an Essendon player.
Yeah. But
9.
You touch on
had 9 in 1 year.
Yeah, we did. But touching on the draft, and people often just reflect on drafting, I think it is a number of things when you get yourself in this position. But let's just focus in on the 2020 draft, or otherwise known as the COVID draft. And it was probably a bad time to have multiple top 10 picks because you didn't see a lot of these kids for a good 18 months. They didn't play any football. We knew Ugle Hagan and Thilthorpe were going to be the top 2 in the draft. But after those first, their 3 picks, Cox, Perkins, Reid, there's no one that really jumps out at you who should have been picked before them. Maybe Max Holmes, but that comes with the next point I'm going to make is development, which leads to your All-Australian discussion. You need strong development in clubs. No wonder Geelong, Sydney, and even the Hawks for a fair period keep producing in the top of the table. You match drafting with good coaching as far as development goes around, and stability in coaching. So Geelong have had Chris Scott and Sydney have had Longmire. Essendon's up to about their 4th coach in the last 6 years. So
when people complain that teams might have got rid of first-round picks for established players, and you look at that, maybe take that into account because there's a bit of laziness when it comes to list analysis.
Well, you can make the argument both ways that it was the 2020 draft. Should you have actually got into that draft and let players go? Now, Danaher left and went to Brisbane, and Sard left as well, 2 big losses, but it probably wasn't the year to have 3 multiple high picks.
But I reckon those 3, because they didn't play for 2 years, Lordy. You're in the system at that stage, and they haven't been physically developed by having those games. I reckon those players are a couple of years behind. So I reckon at 21, you look at them as 18, 19-year-olds. I still think those 3 players that Essendon can play.
Yep.
For what it's worth. What do you reckon, more importantly?
Yeah, I think so. It's just the body of Zach Reed's the biggest concern.
They've all been injured.
And I think
They've all been injured.
Yeah, but that happens to you.
Yeah, I know it does, but Essendon gets injuries. That's part of their problem.